Hello, friends. Welcome back to Trending. Today is another extra special Time Warp episode. As we're recording this, Joe, it's Tuesday, May 14th at 3:30. Most people watching will be watching this on Thursday.
Yeah.
So you got another. You got a kind of cool thing happening this week. You want to give us a quick update?
Yeah. So for the there's like a first ever endurance conference for those running the St. Jude Marathon weekend in Memphis.
Nice.
They're gathering some of the St. Jude fundraisers from all over the country to, descend upon the mean streets of Memphis.
Nice.
And meet with St. Jude people to be inspired. I think we actually get to go on campus a little bit. So, I get to fly to Memphis to do that this week. Pretty stoked, man. They picked 4 of us out of the Midwest, and I was the 5th caller.
Nice.
So I get to go, yeah.
You'll get to have a tour, right, at some of the facilities.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool.
It's going to be awesome.
I'm sure you'll see some cool things.
Yeah, yeah, man.
So we're recording a little bit early. So I'm going to give the same disclaimer I gave last week.
Okay.
We're recording early. And again, we're talking about something that I don't know very much about. Rinse,
repeat.
Yes. So it's a different topic. It's something else I don't know anything about. There's a lot I don't know anything about, apparently. Even in big pop culture land, there's a lot. So you dubbed today, so Tuesday, May 14th, is Caitlin Clark Day.
It is.
So today is kickoff of the WNBA regular season.
Yes.
Her first official game as a professional athlete in the WNBA.
Yes.
Everybody watching probably has at least heard of her. She's been everywhere the past several months, maybe even a couple of years. She's just made such a big splash.
Yes.
So we'll hit a lot of ground. But for people like me who know who she is, we're following the story a little bit. Why don't you just fill us in on whatever we need to know before we get too deep into what Caitlin Clark Day means for America.
Yeah, so Caitlin Clark, #1 draft pick to the Indiana Fever.
Yep, hometown for her.
Yeah, and so she's having she had a great preseason.
Yeah.
So tonight's the first game, and they're actually going to stream it on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Now I think it's probably pretty easy since ESPN Plus, Disney Plus are bundled together.
Yep.
But they don't show a lot of sporting events on Disney Plus. And I think it's a critical move that they're making because for those who may not have Disney Plus and ESPN Plus,
yeah,
she's just kind of a wider audience. But this was to be expected. I mean, she was in an outdoor basketball game when she was with Iowa that set an attendance record.
Yep.
Home attendance records while at Iowa for college basketball.
Yep.
Viewing records during the tournament and stuff.
Yeah.
She's got a big shoe deal coming up. So Avery, my daughter, just turned 15, and I ordered her a Caitlin Clark jersey.
That's cool.
From Fanatics.
Nice.
Okay. They're out of stock.
Yeah.
And I just got an email, and it was hilarious. It said the guarantee ship date is August the 28th. So we're talking 3-4 months from now?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we suppose it's going to be earlier than that, but they're not getting anybody's hopes up that it can be into the end of the summer to get all these jerseys in and orders fulfilled before, I don't know, we're on the conveyor belt. So, Avery could be, 15 and a half by the time we get this jersey, but wildly popular, trendsetter. But, she comes on the shoulders of many who have been working hard to get women's, respected women's sports, women athletes, leaders in our country and culture who've been trying to elevate women's sports to get to equal playing ground with men's sports. Yeah. And so I think it's a fantastic day today.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited for it.
We'll get to it. So kind of, again, the hook of the show is we could try to take something like this and try to pull a spiritual principle for us. So we'll get to that. But I think it's also important just to, again, for just some context, I remember when Brittany Griner went into the WNBA. That's the last WNBA superstar. I remember being a big deal early, draft day. Everybody knows her name and they're excited to see where she lands. Before then, I guess Candace Parker, Lisa Leslie, some of the really old, kind of the first generation of big stars of the WNBA. And this is probably the first time. You can correct me, but I think there's more of a interest in her than really any NBA young stars right now.
Yeah,
we're in this new season where LeBron and Steph Curry and some of the heroes of the current era are kind of on the decline. Yeah. I think people care about Caitlin Clark a lot more than any of the younger NBA players.
Yeah.
I can't remember that ever happening before.
Yeah.
It's interesting time.
And the WNBA season is offset from the NBA season. I mean, the NBA playoffs are still going on. They will probably for another month or so.
Yep.
But, they had to kind of like use their arenas a little bit. They didn't want to get mixed, lost in the mix.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if there's not some conversation. I have no evidence of this, but I wonder if there's not a conversation going to happen soon about whether they can move the WNBA season, in parallel with NBA season. Men's basketball, college basketball, it didn't matter. It didn't matter that women's and men's college basketball was going on simultaneously. I mean, people were tuning into the tournament. People found out tournament brackets for the women's side.
Well, yeah.
You had a higher clip this year than ever before.
Yep.
And so I think this is bigger than Caitlin Clark. There's other great superstars her age, a little older, a little younger, who are obviously quite popular, particularly for those people who are interested and who attend to it. But I just think that we are turning a corner. I don't think it's like a tidal thing where it's, kind of a high tide now, low tide later. I mean, she is a generational type of athlete.
Yeah.
She's obviously like fun to watch. You can tell she's passionate. She does a lot of things well. Yeah. But there's many others, maybe not at her caliber, but many like her. I think going to help sustain this momentum and this interest for the long haul. So,
it's for them to play on Disney. That's crazy. I think it's cool. I think it's awesome, but it's like that's never happened before. So it is just an interesting time. So probably a lot of things we could pull out of this. Yeah. So what's kind of on the top of your mind, whether it's a spiritual thing, a philosophical thing, what's your kind of main takeaway that we can all as an audience consider?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I've seen that's kind of personal for me lately. So Avery, like I said, she just turned 15 and she's the only girl grandkid in Ginger's side of the family.
Okay.
And she likes to do thematic birthdays.
Okay.
And it probably started when like her first birthday was kind of a thematic party. And so we've been recapitulating it ever since. And her theme this year, she wanted it to be women in sports. And so she actually had pictures from the earliest days, like when there's like some Saskatchewan women's hockey team, black and white photo, to the gal who tried to run the Boston Marathon dressed as a guy the best she could, but she was found out and people were trying to pull her off the track and stuff like that. Yeah. So all these people who've gone for her. And what was cool is that one of our friends, Sally, she was in one of the first women's basketball teams at KU.
Oh, wow.
Where they had like 6 people on the floor. You had forwards. Wow. It was like you had forwards and you had the backcourt, and then you had rovers. Like there's like six positions. And it was like one of the very first teams. And but they barely have any pictures of their team. Like they weren't all that important. So like to see like this early development of women's sports and like a league of their own, that great film from our era, reboot of it now. To like now the rising. It's just interesting to see that it looked like women's sports wasn't going to be a thing. It was just kind of a temporary thing while men were busy going off to war. Yeah, but like it's here to stay. And like there's all these new leagues for like professional women's hockey and professional women's soccer. Attendance and viewership is all growing. Their salaries are growing. Like we couldn't get here unless we had like the dutiful sacrifice of many before them who never got to see the reward. They never got to see the development. And I think it's the same in the faith too. We tend to see this like in the waning stanzas of Hebrews 11, which we call the Hall of Faith, because all these people live by faith. I mean, the writer Hebrews is mentioning some people by name and like short bio what they did, but then there's all these like nameless people that they mention at the end. Who, and the writer's quite clear, like they never got to see the fulfillment. They never got to see the promised land of it all. But it's so great that they gave their life for it. They sewed in all the duty and the service to it, knowing that one day it was going to come to pass. That somebody else was going to be afforded the opportunity, even though they weren't. I think that we're seeing this in a vivid way with a day like this. So many before who got looked over, they got mocked, laughed at. No one took them seriously. But now they're like storming the gates, man. Like this thing is here, and it's because of so many nameless faces. Who said it was like the worthy currency of their life was to be given to something they wouldn't see the fulfillment of. And I think that our faith informs a behavior kind of like that. So
that's good. One thing, even I've talked briefly about this in the past, that like part of what we're doing is kind of dangerous. Like if we're taking something out of headlines and trying to pull a faith parallel, you can get to a point where we're over exaggerating a point to make a point, right? So we want to be careful about that. But I also think what you're saying, like the whole, like Caitlin Clark had all this generation of the first generation of the WNBA stars. I've heard her say some things about like she grew up idolizing them, and she kind of had a role model to follow. And a lot of the real pioneers of the WNBA, there really wasn't a model to look to. And she's kind of said, if there wasn't the people who came, like you were just saying, if there wasn't this group that came before me, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
Again, I want to be careful to draw too many parallels, but we continue to push mentoring here.
Yes.
I wonder if there's a little bit of a parallel there where, for people who don't know, we have, I'm going to not get the numbers right, 40, maybe closer to 60 pairs of mentoring people at our church with a older generation, younger generation, just doing life together, asking tough questions. And the feedback's been really positive. Like, I'm really glad that we have this program. Am I pulling something too far, or do you think there's something there that we can learn? You know Caitlin's story better than I do.
No. I think that there is a parallel, and I think this is what the way the faith is. And something that Nasser, who when he was here teaching, he reminded us of is that Westerners, we tend to think linearly of time. You know, like a story starts here and it ends here, right? And there's some checkpoints along the way. But Easterners like him and like the other half of the world, they look at time in a circular way, where things end where they begin. And I think that we could say, like, this is how it works in any sort of organism, like a people community, but particularly in life at the church, it does. I was just thinking about this, like how important it is for us to help people know their spiritual gifts and then to give them a chance. To try it out, because it's kind of awkward at first. Like any new thing you try, like you're really terrible at it, right? But like people around you be patient and they continue to give you more and more reps, you get more and more used to it, right? Like I remember, like I wasn't born, like I'm not a pastor's kid. So like ministry wasn't like a given. It wasn't like there's a 50% chance I could be a minister because dad is or because granddad was. Even though they love the church, like that wasn't a given. And so I remember like the first time I announced, I think I might want to do church work. Everybody could have laughed their faces off because it could have been the last thing that they would have seen of me. But they didn't, right? And they allowed me to preach, and it was terrible. And they like, you know what, you try that again. Here's a couple pointers. And hey, we're going to like scrape some money together and give you this little scholarship to help pay off some of your seminary dues, right? People who like nothing immediately directly helps them. Like they turn around, 'cause somebody did it to them. It was now their turn to do it to somebody else. That might be one of the most praiseworthy ways to live. And unless you have something like the call of the gospel, which is the call to come and die and to start a new life over, like to relearn things, I just don't know how we do that naturally. But I think the life of faith, being soaked in scripture, in the songs and the prayers of the church, helps us to live life that way. And I think the world is better around us because of it.
Well, that's good. One more kind of thing I've been thinking about with Caitlin Clark in mind, you can share some thoughts, is I think she's handled, like how old is she? Do you know? You
got to be 22, 23. I mean, she just got out of college, right?
So she's young, like, and she's got kind of the weight of the world on her shoulders in some way. And again, I'm paying attention, but not as close as you are. She seems to handle the iconness, the trailblazer-ness about her story, I think, really well. I think she is kind of this, I think, a praiseworthy example of, she is a trailblazing icon for women's sports, for women's rights or whatever, but she does it in a way that I think is really applaudable. She's not preachy. She's not trying to take advantage of her platform to get a really political message across. She seems to be a trailblazing icon in a healthy way, from my perspective. Would you agree? And is there something that we can pull from that? Because I've been impressed with how she's handled her attention in her spotlight.
No, I think, and no one's perfect. Maybe she would look back and say, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. There was a little bit of a back and forth between she and a few other college athletes, but I think that's just competition. When the juices get flowing and stuff, but they seem to have befriended themselves. And what's kind of cool is that someone that she played against in the tournament this year from South Carolina is on her team in the WNBA. So you get a chance now to play with that person. And there's a chance they may have played with or against each other earlier in life, in like other summer travel teams or something like that. And so I just think this is what I've seen, and this is a gross overgeneralization, but I am so impressed with women team sport athletes. I'm not saying individual sport athletes, they're not saying, but like I noticed this even when we're at Sterling. Like it was fun to go to volleyball games because they cheered the whole time for one another. You kind of see it in softball too, where there's like different chances to do in cheers and stuff. Now, can they be ugly towards another team? Absolutely. That's what happens when juices get flowing. But I have sensed more of a camaraderie, and I even see it like in the women's hockey game. They play better positional hockey. They kind of know their roles. They know how to lean on one another. They seem to have a healthier teamwork environment. It's less kind kind of unproductively competitive. Competition's good. It's productive at times. It can get unproductive. I've just been so impressed. And so I think she knew early on that she was going to do something great with her life.
Yeah.
But she could have broken two different ways there. She could say, well, then the world owes me something, right? And have a chip on her shoulder. Or she could say, I'm getting breaks here that other athletes, other girls my age are not getting. And so I've got to really cherish this. I've got to be thankful for this. I got to have gratitude in my heart.
Yeah.
And thank people along the way, right? And so it's not a given just because you're good and gifted that you're going to break that way. I think that you can break in two different directions, unfortunately. And if that was through coaching, if that was through a great home life, or just some people who invested along the way, I don't know. But she certainly has shown this great maturity for someone quite younger, for someone to look up to.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. I'll try to throw in one more Bible thing. We'll try to wrap up here.
All right.
Again, maybe I'm stretching things. I'm just going to ask you. I didn't ask you ahead of time, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
All right.
But I'm curious, can you think of someone, you're really good at thinking of stories that we've heard but we don't talk about all the time. Okay. Can you think of someone from the Bible, an example of someone in Caitlin's shoes where they maybe unexpectedly or maybe expectedly had a leadership position that handled it really well, that we can kind of look at as a good model for us? Yeah. Again, I'm kind of putting you on the spot. That's a specific question. But can you think of anybody like that?
I do think about Barnabas in the book of Acts, and we may have shared about him a little bit. So, Barnabas, we know that he's a Levite. But early on, he's got this plot of land that he sells off in order to help pay for the bills of people in the early church. So that's kind of a problem in the text, because if you're steeped in the Hebrew Bible, you know that Levites don't have land. They didn't get an allotment of land. So this guy, I don't know, maybe he had a great poker game going on, and that's what somebody threw in the middle. I have no idea why he's got
Can you imagine?
a plot of land. But it does seem like maybe in a narrative way in Luke's novella of the early church, he's saying this guy, he put his life together. He was a bit out of joint. Here I am, a Levite, a Jew, steeped in the tradition of my people, but my life's out of joint. Levites aren't supposed to have land, so here, let me sell it off and get right.
Yeah.
And there's a servant attitude. Of course, he kind of earns the name son of encouragement. But when Saul of Tarsus, who was terrorizing the church, becomes a believer, wants to join the church, there's that vivid story where everyone's so nervous that maybe he's faking it to infiltrate them and to ruin them.
Yeah.
I can see the scene where everyone's backing away, but Barnabas is stepping forward to embrace him and bring him into the life of the church. Yeah. And then the two of them are sent off from Antioch to be the first church planters in the new, vanguards of new movements. And I just think that page after page, he just seems to be the guy that's I don't know how long or what's the next opportunity, but I kind of want to be the one that prepares the way for other people. Yeah. And even when he and Paul part ways after the Council of Jerusalem in Acts 15, Paul's got this disagreement because of John Mark's maybe dedication. Barnabas didn't want to see John Mark alone. Yeah. And so he forfeited his further travels with Paul in order to be a companion to John Mark. And so anyways, I see him as an example again and again. He's kind of a B team, kind of a B level name in the New Testament. Yeah, right. You have to really be paying attention to follow his plot line. But I think if you study him as a character study, you see some of these attributes in him.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Cool. Well, I love basketball. Pre-kids, I watched a lot of basketball. Post-kids, I just haven't, just because of time. But I love that Caitlin Clark is such a big deal. I love that she's making splashes and on Disney Plus. I think it's amazing. Yeah, so it's gonna be a good time. And just that she's kind of this new wave of a new rising tide of talent in the basketball world. It's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. Yep.
So we wish her good luck tonight. Whatever happens when you're watching on Thursday, you know more than we do. But any closing thoughts?
No. So we are continuing our message series called Relatable this Sunday, and we're going to talk about marriage this time around. So I hope that you can get to come. I think we have a baptism at 11 o'clock, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. So plenty of things going on here. It's like camp season for our Next Gen Ministries. We got VBS around the corner. Yeah. We just had a meeting talking about all the stuff for this summer, and it's going to be a full summer, and it's going to be exciting.
We got interns on board, which is always fun.
That's right. Yeah.
Busy summer, but good time.
We're learning new buzzwords or new
new lingo.
It's going to be a good time.
Nice. All right. So thanks so much for all of you watching, listening, wherever you are. Hope to see you again next time, and have a good week.
Yep. See you next time.
See ya.